Hi, I'm JD Hagler with Aux'Arc Climbing. We're going to talk today about jacket molds. I've actually had this video kind of recorded for a long time. Probably 6 to 8 months. I just haven't assembled it all and put it together, and there wasn't quite the demand out there for shaping that there was when I first put that stuff out. And now that everyone's doing their own home walls and they're looking at doing their own shapes, it's kind of blown up again. So I'm going to go ahead and polish it up and put it out. But we're going to talk today about jacket molds. So the steepest cost getting into your own shapes and casting is the silicone. Now, obviously, you can do the big wood shapes and whatnot and avoid all that. But if you're looking to get into your own home casting and putting your own holes on the wall that you've shaped and cast in a polyurethane, again, the steepest cost is the silicone up front. It's not too bad to make something like this. You can create a mold, like probably what I'm showing here in this picture. You can create a mold for 4 or 5 edges and feet for under $30 probably. It's about a pound of silicone. You can get a pound of silicone for $30 from Alumilite. You can get it for $18 if you're able to get it from Hobby Lobby while they're open. That's after COVID-19 kind of dies down a little bit. Or you can order it from smoothon.com for 2.2 pounds for $30. The price efficiency with Smooth-On is so much better than it is with Alumilite. And so that's kind of why I've switched to my silicone endeavors is Smooth-On. And this is Mold Max 20 specifically that I'm using. The big issue though is that once you get past these small crimps, like you can make your money back real quick on these. You can cast these for next to nothing and you can do several sets and you can use them anywhere. You can put them on volumes, you can use them as feet, you can use them all over the wall and make your money back by printing that many sets. And you're going to get over the initial cost of that silicone, all right? You know, because there's only a couple of bucks worth of resin in a full set of these. I mean, this is probably $1 worth of resin. The resin's cheap after the mold's paid for. This becomes a major issue when you get into your bigger holds if you want them. The mold for this one, if you imagine your cast sitting on the table, the mold has to go all the way around it and come up over the top about so far to give it that structural support. And then, because this one's a hollow back, because you're trying to save on the resin costs, because you don't want to just pour this straight out of resin. It's going to be heavy, and then you start looking at some serious resin costs. So I have a hollow back here. Well, that's also silicone. So there's a lot of silicone that goes into this. I probably have $150 worth of silicone in this mold. My wall doesn't need a dozen of these. In order to be cheaper to home cast than it is to order them from somewhere else, I would have to cast probably a dozen and a half of these, and a home wall just can't justify that. Luckily, I have a local gym that I donate to in exchange for membership fees, so I make that money back. But most home wall guys don't have that option. So you have to look at other options, or you have to stop about the time you get to a size like this. However, even at a size like this, the silicone is going to be a lot. Like you can see a lot of dead space. If you just fill it straight up full of silicone, you're going to have all this dead space on either side that's just all solid silicone. You can try and angle it back with a form box, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a pain in the butt. But you know, when you're looking at the silicone cost, you got to do something. This is a lot of dead silicone that just doesn't do anything except fill it up because it's a liquid, and it lets it set straight when you're done. So we're going to talk about jacket molding. What a jacket mold is this guy right here. This jacket mold, normally your mold would be this whole shape, right? Because you poured it all up to a level surface and it just molded that way. Well, this is a 2-part mold. This is plaster of Paris, and this is Mold Max 20 silicone with a little bit of 5X. So what we're going to talk today about is creating a jacket mold. And what that amounts to is pouring an initial layer and kind of drizzling enough over the top to just barely coat it, and then thickening up several layers of silicone and brushing them on, spreading them out to create a mold that's about 3/8 inch thick. And then you just kind of peel it off your mold. And so while it's sitting down in there, we'll put a couple of registration keys so it will lock into the same place on your master mold every time. And then we'll pour a much cheaper mold material over the top of this to create this thing that it will slot into. And see if I can get this to line up. Like so. There's 2 out of 3 keys. There's the 3rd key. You can just drop that back in there, cast your mold, pop this out of the master, peel it off your mold, and you're ready to rock and roll. And this is about a pound of silicone. So if I were to do this full thing out of silicone, it probably would have been about 2 or 3 pounds. Would cost me almost $100 at $30 a pound from Alumilite. At least 50 or 60 bucks from Smooth On at 30 per 2.2 pounds. However, because I used this couple dollar bottle worth of Thivex and created a jacket mold instead, it's going to cost me 30 bucks for a mold, which is stellar. And it's going forward is probably how I'll start looking at doing bigger holds like this if I get back into them. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through that on this video, and hopefully you learn a bunch of things, and hopefully that answers a lot of your questions and gives you a cheaper alternative for your silicone. All right, so I've got this mold set up. I've got a nail in here already to protect the side. I'm going to go ahead and pour the regular Mold Max 20 down through this thing just to cover all the thinner stuff. I'm not going to pour in the peg hole right now. I will do that towards the end of this process, but I'm gonna go ahead and just let everything kind of flow across and cover everything and have a real thin layer, a little thin layer of silicone, and then we'll come in with the brush on stuff. So let's go ahead and do it. Alright, so I've got a little bit left. I'm going to put this tall PEX tubing in right there. And you see how it's kind of leaning. I don't want it to lean, so I'm going to prop it up a little bit. It's not wanting to cooperate with me here. There we go. And then I'm going to pour a little bit closer to the bolt hole. Alright, so all the fine details should be covered and protected. Worst case scenario, if there are any air bubbles down in there, there's not a very thick layer of silicone for it to push through, so I'm okay with that. We'll go ahead and let that thin layer dry. And there's a little more silicone on the bottom of that than I thought there would be. But we'll go ahead and put a couple more layers on top of that. We'll go ahead and brush some more layers onto it with more silicone and go into that in further steps. So that part's done. Alright, here I got just a little bit of silicone. Maybe, I mean, we're talking 50 to 75 milliliters here. I'm going to put in just a little bit of this Thivex just to thicken it up some. Not much. We're just going to kind of throw in a drop or two and see what it does. Because I really don't want to like overdo it. So there's some Thivex. I go ahead and put the hardener in. So I'm not putting much in. Just a little bit here.
put a couple of little registration keys in here. Just see how these... Actually, I think I'm going to cut those down a little bit. Like that. Put that one there. Put this one here. I cut this in half too. Put another one right in the middle of that. Down there. I really just don't want them to slide around too much. Right there. Alright, now I'm going to pull the rest of my... Alright, we'll let that dry. We'll do another round, probably another layer, maybe two, but maybe just another good thick layer. I'll probably add a little more 5X and then let that really set. Alright, this is pretty hard. There's a little bit of tackiness down the bottom, but nothing crazy. Got my last batch. I just mixed it up in the container. Go ahead and just one more layer here. This is probably a little bit more than what it needs, but it's like right at that point where I didn't have enough left in the pot for another project. But I still needed a good chunk of it, so I went ahead and I'm just going to use most of it. I do note that, yeah, it's about thick. That's about where I want it. I'm going to try and smooth it out quite a bit. So it pulls itself out of the carrier mold. I don't know what the correct name for that process is, but we're going to pour some plaster in over around this tomorrow when it's completely set, and making sure to get a bunch of silicone around this support nail over here. I really want that to be done correctly. Look out for them air bubbles. For shadows inside of that color. I'm trying to pop the air bubbles. This stuff's thick enough that your air bubbles aren't just going to, rise to the surface like it does normally most of the time. So spread it around, let it set up a little bit, if it will. Like I said, it likes getting the air bubbles down and around these pockets. I do want a decent amount of silicone around this post. I can see some stuff's kind of sloughing off towards the side here. Trying to stack it up a little bit more to center. This should be plenty for our final mold. And for our final layer, should be great. And add a little bit down in there in that corner. Alright, went ahead and got some more registration keys because the keys I had were completely completely overwhelmed. So I'm going to set one there. I cut them at an angle so that they would kind of align a bit more. I'll put another one there. I'm going to put another one right there. Make sure I don't have a ton of material. Yeah, there is a lot of that sloughed off. I really don't want it down at the base. I want it up on the mold itself. I know the base is already pretty, where it connects to the base is already pretty strong just because of how much silicone is slid down there. So I really want to keep the bulk of this material up on the mass if I can. So I am a little worried about not being able to work with this nail down below, so I want to make sure that's smoothed down into the base too, so that doesn't create a lip for the jacket mold to catch. Too bad. Let's see if I can straighten up that nub a little bit. Cool. Alright, I think there's a lot of material right there. Man, I keep thinking I'm so close. It just wants to come off. Wrap that up and around. Cool. Alright. I think I'm done with that. We'll see how that pulls together. I do see a little bit of holes down the bottom there. Straighten them out a little bit. Okay. Alright, so our registration keys are in. My light source is bad. I need to get another light over here, so I don't keep blocking my camera light. But my registration keys are in. I've got the surface mostly smoothed down. I don't see any really strong, crazy spots where the jacket mold can latch in and really keep it from going anywhere. So I'm pretty happy with that. Next step is to come in and create the jacket mold. We're just going to pour some plaster in there. Nothing crazy. So, alright, so this mold's set up. We're going to go ahead and mix some plaster together. This is just some simple plaster Paris I got. I have a scale that I've already weighed out the stuff I need on. So I'm going to go ahead and mix these together and pour this in. And I put my center post back in. Like so. And then, actually, I want to clean that up. All right, I'm gonna break the mold open and see what we got.